Hello, everyone. I hope you're doing well. Hope you're enjoying the warm weather. We're currently recording this in June, and yeah, it's been a week of warm weather, of fans out, of shorts and t-shirts, and yeah, it finally feels like summer is coming. But yeah, let's get things started with our intro, which is: have you ever been given the wrong advice, told to expect one thing, and then experienced the complete opposite? Well, we're here to address this. Each episode, we will bring on a guest speaker, and they might be a graduate, they might be a current student, they might be alumni, to discuss some assumptions that we've had or things we were told to expect and how this was different to what we went through. But don't worry, we won't end it there. We're not going to leave you in the doom and gloom. We're going to be offering some personal tips and advice to how you can learn from our mistakes and our experiences. And in this episode, we're sort of treating it as like a special episode, a special edition episode of So No One Told You, because this episode, we're sort of at a point where, you know, we've passed the halfway point for the number of episodes for this season, and we'd like to sort of do a bit of a retrospective. So talking about some three key areas, which are looking at essentially living away from home or living on campus, graduate opportunities, and then finally making the most of your university experience. And we've done specific episodes on those topics, which you can check by checking on the playlist, but also we'll be highlighting them in the video as well. But I'm gonna kick things off by introducing us, our audience, to not only one but two great guest speakers that we've got today, and you might even recognize one of them. So I'm going to start things off. We're going to start off with Emily. Yeah, Emily, it's been great. It's great to have you back. For anyone who sort of missed your episode that we did before, could you please let them know who you are, what you do, and yeah, if you've been up to anything interesting since we last spoke.
Yeah, hi Jeffrey, thanks for having me back. It's good to be here again. So my name's Emily and I am from Advocacy, specifically the Uni Advocates branch, which is a specific branch of a nationwide advocacy company that offers advocacy to students. And we are operating currently at Brunel, and we offer free confidential support to students for a range of different things. And I also run the Uni Advocate service at the moment too. So we've been up to a lot actually since last coming on the pod. We've been working on some really exciting stuff on social media, like doing a partnership with a charity called the Will Garvey Trust, which encourages young people to talk about their mental health and get supported and get involved. And that was really fun. And we've also been on campus a few times. So we had the Freshers Fair, which we will be at again this year. So come and find us if you're around. And we were also at the housing fair actually not too long ago, which was really great, meeting a lot of students, a lot of staff. And it was really good just to get talking to people and actually see people face to face, because we do work from home. Haven't been up to much personally. Well, actually, I am starting my PhD in autumn, so I'm back to being a student again. So this is becoming very relevant for me. And going back to that in my personal life. But yeah, that's what I've been up to since I last saw you.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it definitely seems like both in work and in your personal life, you've been up to a lot. And yeah, PhD, congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah, wish you all the best for that. But we've also got another guest speaker. And as I always say, I don't do the introductions because the guest speakers will do a much better job than I will. So I'm going to hand over to Louise. Could you just let us know a bit more about yourself, what you do? And yeah, if you've been up to anything interesting, could you let us know as well?
Okay, well, hi Jeffrey. Thank you very much for having me come to join you on this podcast. It's quite exciting for me. So I work with Emily, but I work in the business development team, and we try really hard to promote uni advocates, not just in the current universities, but across the universities across the whole country. You know, trying really hard to reach out to students who might need that little bit of extra help to find their own voice and say what it is that matters to them and resolve problems and issues. So that's something that's really, really important to me. What we've been up to, well, we're really, really pleased that we've launched our new website. So we've redesigned that, and we've redesigned all our literature to go with all our different services that we do. So we've been really busy putting all that together, and it will be launched in the universities at the Freshers in September. So we're looking forward to handing out all those leaflets and meeting lots of your students. Personally, I'm a little bit more grown up than Emily, as I like to put it. And my son got married about 2 weeks ago, so that has been consuming my whole life for the past few months, and now I'm just on come down from it. Absolutely amazing, but no, it was great.
Oh, thank you, and congratulations to your son. Yeah, weddings are. I think, like you said, there's all this sort of like build up, and it's nice to sort of have that peace and relaxation once it's all done. Just like, yes, I can relax. Not stressing about venues and who's attending and things like that. So yeah, congratulations to your son.
Thank you.
Oh, you're very welcome. So yeah, we're going to start off. So our audience know that usually what we do is we break things down with assumptions, realities, and then sort of a piece of advice at the end. But as I mentioned, as this is sort of like our special edition to celebrate essentially how far we've gone with this podcast, instead, what we're going to do is, as I mentioned at the start, we're going to look at 3 key areas. So the first area we're going to start off with actually was our first episode, which was all about living away from home or living on campus. And as a uni student, whether you're sort of just about to go to university, you're currently at university, you've been at university and you're going back. Living on campus or living away from home is always, it can be good, it can be fun, but it can also be a bit of a tricky period. It can also be a bit unnerving. So we're going to start with Louise for this question first, which was, how did your children find living away from home or living on campus? Were they a bit homesick over, the first couple of weeks? I think even in the episode we saw jokes that, a lot of students, sometimes don't know how to cook or they don't know how to clean and stuff. So were your students giving you, your children giving you calls about, how to cook certain meals and things like that? How did they find living on campus?
Oh, that's really funny, actually. So when I thought about this question that we were talking about, and I knew that this was coming up, I reflected, because I went to university, but that was way back in the dark ages. But I think the biggest difference between my experience and their experience was expectations. I was first generation going off to university. Nobody I knew had been, so I just heard that that's what you went and did. There was no social media, there were no phones. You didn't have most students didn't have a car, and public transport was a nightmare. You couldn't afford it anyway. So you were literally just marooned wherever you'd chosen to go. And there was a phone call home once a week, and there were occasional letters, sent between people. So it very much threw you into the mix of, you had to get on with the people around you. When my children went to university, of course, they then heard all the great stories that everybody then regales of their fantastic time at university. And isn't that the same for everything? It's rose-tinted spectacles. You look back and it's just one great big ball. It was a party every night. And that actually wasn't the case. There was lots of times when I was at university, I was bored. There was nothing to do. I had no money to do anything. And, the course, whilst your course is a great part of the time, they're not great all of the time. There's a lot of stuff that you think, oh, I'm sure I didn't sign up for that. And then when the children went off to university, they were kind of trying to almost just live up to that expectation that it was going to be party time and it was going to be fun and they were going to make lots of friends. And then the reality hits home, but actually it isn't quite like that. And I think they've almost been sold something that's not quite true. And I would think that a lot of the students going through universities now will have parents that have that experience similar to myself, in that, we were all kind of like stuck in university. So my son, when he went to university, he went to a small campus-based university. He was put into a flat. He made some great friends within the first couple of weeks. And then, within the first month, those 2 friends of his in that flat left. And he was kind of like stranded again, and then had to go and make new friends. And I think that set him back a little bit. He was quite homesick. I was quite surprised, because he was really keen to go, but then he realised that actually all these parties weren't happening every night, and it wasn't quite the fun that you'd expect. I think expectations around that first year are key, that they're not sold as, this great time. You have to put in a lot of effort. You have to invest in your relationships and your friendship groups, and you have to be very active in going out to find those friendship groups. Regarding cooking and cleaning, I wouldn't like to say what his cleaning was like. I think at his halls of residence, they actually had a cleaner. And I can remember they had a laundry service, which was like, what are you talking about? I certainly didn't have that in my day. I think in follow-up years, he struggled a little bit. But my 2 children could both cook, because they realised if they didn't cook, they had to wash up, and they hated that even more than cooking. My daughter went to a Scottish university, again small place, and she elected to share a room in halls with somebody else because she was quite anxious actually about meeting other people and getting to know other people. So she joined halls, and it's a female halls, and she was sharing a room, and that certainly eased her into it. She also at that university they also operated an academic family, whereby third and fourth years adopt freshers. And so she then met another 8 or 9 other siblings, adoptee siblings, and they became quite good friends. And then one of them became her best friend, and she lived with that girl throughout the rest of her time at university. But that transition from being in school where you know everybody, or college, you know all the staff, you know if you've got a problem you can go home and moan to your parents. Now you've got to go and try and locate your parents on your phone. You don't know people around you and things are a little bit unfamiliar, and you don't quite know where you stand socially with other people. And also, you haven't got that history in the first year. You're creating that history, and that's what friendships kind of are founded on, aren't they? Those dual experiences that you have with everybody, and then you reminisce. So, yeah. So, none of us went to university and didn't have some bouts of homesickness. We all managed to feed ourselves in some way. And thankfully, we all managed our pittances of money as well to just keep going and not be too bad at the end of it. Anyway, how about you then, Emily?
Well, do you know what, Louise? I really enjoyed living away from home at university. And I think what made such a big difference for me is something that you mentioned, is that making connections with people. I joined a sports team immediately. And from that, you just have like a ready-made group of friends. And you don't always get on with everyone, but who does? It's just having something in common with people, having something that brings you together, seeing them regularly. It really did help me to make friends, and I'm still friends with people from my sports team. And I also lived with great people that I'm still friends with 6 years later. And it is just about fostering those friendships and putting yourself out there. Of course, it's not always the easiest thing to join a society or a sports team. There is usually a cost involved, especially with sports teams, but a society, I think these days it's about £5 for membership for a society. And if there's something that you're interested in, whether that's movies or anime or cooking or something, there are literally societies for everything these days. It's just a way to get to know people. And I think that really impacts the way that you cope with living away from home and living away from all your friends and your support system that you grew up with. I think that's really what kept me going, was actually putting myself right in the thick of things and saying, do you know what? You're here, you don't know anyone, you got to make friends. You're going to be here for 3 years. And I think that's really just what helped me get by.
Well, thank you. And I definitely agree with both of you that sometimes it is just, getting out there, trying new things. I think you mentioned it before, but like getting involved in Freshers Week. I think a lot of students, even, a lot of students feel like after, they sort of had their first year at university, they sort of come back for second year. Whether it's, they're living in a new accommodation or a new flat, they're sort of a bit nervous, they don't really know people. But I think having something like Freshers Week is a really good way to build up friends. Like you said, Emily, there's a lot of societies out there that there's definitely going to be one for you. But also a lot of societies do a lot of like taster sessions. They do a lot of like free things you can get involved in. Your student union will be doing a lot of work to sort of like showcase what you can get involved with the student union. So yeah, there's definitely a lot of things when you're sort of getting into university, especially whether it's your first time, you're going into your first year, or you're sort of coming back, or things like that. There's always a lot of fun activities that are done, and I definitely feel like if you do take advantage during Freshers Fair is a really good thing. But also, I think not only just for, to meet new people, but also you get to understand that like everyone else is going through the same thing as you. So, you're not the only one going through, homesickness, or, whether it's you're unsure about like balancing your finances or cooking or cleaning or things like that. There are other students who are going through the same thing as you, and sometimes they might be in the same halls as you as well. Sometimes they might not be, but it's a great way for you to sort of like build up that connection. I'd be very surprised if other universities don't do it, but I know, for example, I think Brunel still does it. They have they basically create like Facebook groups, but I guess now like everything's sort of moving away from Facebook. It might be like a WhatsApp group instead. But I know before they had like a Facebook group for each of the sort of like blocks of accommodation. So they would say, if a student was registered to be in a certain hall, they could find, like, they'll be put in a group with other students and they'd be told which flats they would be in. So students could sort of create their own mini WhatsApp groups and sort of discuss and say, oh, hey, I'm going to be in the same building as you. Maybe we'll be in the same flat. So even before they sort of get to the university and they're living in their accommodation, they've got that sort of knowledge, and they sort of know like, oh, I know this person, like we spoke over Facebook and we, found out that we're both really interested in this subject. We're both studying the same course or things like that. Having those sort of like pre-university like opportunities to meet other people is always good, because I think especially whether you're sort of like an international student coming to the UK, whether you're even a home student, there's always that sort of uncertainty of, even if, like, for example, loads of people from your college or from your sixth form are going to the same university as you, there's always that concern of, will I fit in? Will there be other people who are interested in what I'm interested in? Things like Freshers Week, online groups are really good ways to sort of do that and to find, new people and to network. Mental health is really important to us at Pick Up the Mic, and we love to share resources that can support your mental health. And that's why we are so glad to have today's sponsor. Thank you to BetterHelp for sponsoring this video. BetterHelp is the world's largest therapy service, and it's 100% online. With BetterHelp, you can tap into a network of over 30,000 licensed and experienced therapists who can help you with a wide range of issues. To get you started, you just answer a few questions about your needs and preferences in therapy. That way, BetterHelp can match you with the right therapist from their network. Then you can talk to your therapist however you feel comfortable, whether it's via text, chat, phone, or video call. You can message your therapist at any time and schedule live appointments when it's convenient for you. If your therapist isn't right for any reason, you can switch to a new therapist at no additional charge. With BetterHelp, you get the same professionalism and quality you expect from in-office therapy, but with a therapist who is custom-picked for you, more scheduling flexibility, and at an affordable price. Get 10% off your first month at betterhelp.com/pickupthemic. I've also linked them down below in the description. So again, that's betterhelp.com/pickupthemic, MIC, and start your journey today. It sort of happened unintentionally, but because we were sort of talking about Freshers' Weeks and societies, it sort of links with the next area that I'd really like to get into, which is talking about making the most of your university experience. Because in that episode, we did mention that societies are a really key way to do that, because they not only, whether it's actually societies or sports clubs, they both offer you a unique experience to get involved with a certain subject, whether it's, you're joining an academic society, whether it's a passion of yours, or whether it's, a sport that you've always wanted to learn or to try out, you can always get involved in. And like you mentioned in that episode and in other episodes, that whether you want to join a sports club or not, whether you sort of don't want to compete against other universities or things like that, the great thing about sports clubs is a lot of them do have just like regular training that you can attend, that you don't necessarily need, if you're just there to sort of, you want to improve your health, or you want to learn more about a particular sport, or you've been really interested in a certain sport, but, you've not had the opportunity to explore it before. They give you the space to do that. So you don't always have to sort of be competing against other universities at events. If you want to, there's loads of opportunities to do that. But if you're sort of more interested in just developing a skill, or, you'd like to do, learn a sport yourself, you can do that as well. So this next question, and we'll start with Emily for this one, which is all about how can students ensure that they make the most of their university experience? So I guess as someone who's, coming back to university, Emily, what would you say is like one key thing that, for any student that's sort of, whether they're coming back for a master's, whether they're literally just going to start their undergraduate, maybe they're like you and doing a PhD as well. What can they do to sort of make sure that they maximize their university experience?
I think one of the most important things that I learned as a student in my second year, and something that I've really noticed working with university students, is that there are so many resources that are available and free to students that we don't even know about, like free counselling, free careers advice, mental health advisors, academic support. There is so much available at university that's really hard to access in the outside world when you finish, and it's expensive and there's long waiting lists. So when it's right there in the palm of your hand, and usually a lot more accessible, you just got to use it and make the most of it. And it will really, hopefully, enrich the rest of your university experience if you're getting that support from everywhere and really throwing yourself into campus life and making the most of being in a new area, wherever you are at uni. Even if it is in your hometown, it's still a completely different experience being on a university campus. And I think just actually getting involved and figuring out what's there, what's around you, and what's accessible, and just using it over those 2, 3, 4, however many years you're at university, just actually taking advantage of what you're actually paying for. When you do pay your tuition fees and you're using your student loans, it all goes towards everything that a university has to offer. So you might as well use it if you're paying for it, or if the government's paying for it and you're paying it back later in your life. You may as well. It's like turning down a free slice of pizza if you walk past the Domino's stand at Freshers' Fair. Why would you do that? It's like you just take advantage of it.
Oh, thank you. And yeah, I definitely agree. I think that it's very key for students to realize, like we said, I think you even mentioned it in the episode that we did with JP, that there's so many resources that students get for free, where when you graduate, you have to pay for. And it's not even just, like you said, to do with, just mental health, or even like, trialing different sports stuff like that, or joining certain groups, even things like academic support with, or even professional development support. I know, for example, if you're a Brunel student, you get access to LinkedIn Learning. So as long as you throughout your whole time period at Brunel, you can use your Brunel student email to sign up and do any LinkedIn course that you're sort of interested in for free. But like you said, that's something that outside of, like, once you graduate, you don't have access to, and it is quite expensive to pay for LinkedIn Learning. But yeah, I definitely agree that there's a lot of resources that that students don't realize once they graduate they don't have access to. So yeah, definitely utilizing those resources is really key. But yeah, Louise, what would you say is something that students can do to maximize their university experience?
Yeah, just following on from what you were saying there about doing those LinkedIn courses and all the other things that you can do in a university. Whilst you're at university, you've actually got the time as well to do all those things. Not only are they free, a lot of them, but you've got sufficient time to be able to access them, because once you're working a 9 to 5 or whatever it is that you're doing, coming home and then doing even more courses, or going to 3 or 4 different societies and clubs during the week, suddenly becomes 1, too expensive, and 2, you haven't got the time and the energy to do it anymore. So definitely do it while you're a student. I mean, my sort of like key to all this is just get involved. And I'm thinking about all those students who sometimes find it really difficult to go into a room or an environment whereby they've got to introduce themselves, or they feel as if, they're a little bit unsure about the protocols and how to handle that. And I would absolutely encourage them to go to Freshers' Fairs, because all the people behind the tables in that Freshers' Fair are desperate and are grabbing people and couldn't be more keen and eager to talk to you. So you haven't got to make that first step. They will do it. So my daughter did that. She was walking around. Somebody tapped her on the shoulder. She turned around and they said, "You want to join this club, don't you?" And she kind of was blown over, and then just nodded. And lo and behold, she joined the club. And 3 years later, she was the treasurer, and then she was the captain of the club. So, and that was a real surprise. It really boosted her confidence throughout her university time, and also helped her meet people that were not on her course and, were not in her immediate friendship group. So again, she got to know a lot more people. I on the back of what you and Emily were saying as well, is it's finding out about all of those resources. You might have to go into the library, you might have to read the newsletters that come out via email, or I'm assuming Brunel has one, and actually paying attention to what is available out there, and sort of like snooping around a little bit and seeing what is on offer. You just don't know what's going to interest you. Don't think, "Oh, I don't like the sound of that, I'm not doing it." Go and try it. Go and see whether you don't like it before you make that decision that you don't like it. You just don't know. And try and keep a balance as well about, with getting the most of university. Is you've got a course to do, you've got deadlines to meet, you've got a little bit of studying to do and a bit of work to do. So make sure that bit gets done. Make sure that you keep a healthy lifestyle. There's lots and lots of student apps out there now that talk about, how to get up in the morning, to have your breakfast, to go and do a little bit of exercise, to make sure you get to bed early. I'm not saying that you do that every day as a student. I know that's for some is just not going to happen. But also, if you're going to have lots of fun and frolics, as I call them, just make sure that, one, it's not overly expensive and eating into all your money, so you've got nothing left at the end of the term. And two, you're not getting overtired and exhausted, because that's when any of the problems that you then might have become really big and cumbersome and you don't quite know what to do. But again, there's always people out there. If you get to know enough people, there's always friendship groups who can help you out. If you don't feel as if they're able to help you out, make sure you go and use all the services that are around you to help you out.
I definitely agree, and I think, like you said, there are so many resources. That's even part of the reason why Pick Up the Mic started doing podcasts, was because there are so many resources that students just don't realize until they're just about to leave or they've left, that they can get involved in and they can use. And then it's always interesting because those students will turn around and be like, "Oh wow, I wish." I utilize this resource, or I use this, or I use that. Like we were saying before, a lot of them are free. A lot of them are ones that you can even use after you graduate. So for example, I know at Brunel, our career service advice, so whether it's to do with CVs and cover letters, they can, or interview prep, they can do all of that for 3 years after a student has graduated. I know our entrepreneur team, they can offer sort of business consultation or answer any questions regarding entrepreneurship and freelancing for 3 years after you graduate. And a lot of students don't know about this. They don't know that this can be done. Even the sort of things spoken with the, like for example, with the Entrepreneur Hub, if there's anyone who's interested in freelancing or starting a business, you can ask them for support with whether it's, getting a bit of knowing where to get legal advice, whether it's to know about like certain documents you should be signing to protect your business idea. They offer a lot of resources and tips and advice that students don't necessarily know exist or don't know how to utilize. Whereas if, you were to go to an organization outside, you'd probably be paying a lot, or even you might just get a few free sessions, but then you'd be paying for anything else. So yeah, it's really great. It's really great to know that universities in general just offer that support. But I'd definitely say, as we sort of mentioned here, that if you are a student who is going, you're sort of in your first year, coming towards the end of that, or even if you're just about to go to university, definitely do make the most of that time. And then I think one final thing is, I think a lot of students feel, especially if they're like a master's student, because they're only there for such a short period of time, if they're not sort of going back to a university that they're already studying at, they feel like they can't make the most of their time there. But I definitely would agree, while there is sort of the added deadlines, there's a bit more expected from you as a master student. You definitely can. There are a few people that I know that have helped out with the podcast, that they've done everything possible, or almost everything possible, at Brunel. They've done volunteering, they've applied for different competitions and got funding for their ideas. They've worked as a student ambassador. They've done all sort of, like, they've joined societies, they've joined sports clubs, they've done all of this. And they did it all within that sort of year time frame. And it's definitely something that I feel like a lot of students feel that they can't do, especially master students, because you're only typically there just for that 1 year. But it is to say that you can sort of make the most of that time, and you can make the most of that experience. I know, even, for example, if you were to go back to university that you studied at, like, for example, with me, I knew that there were certain things that I hadn't done during my undergraduate that I was just like, actually, you know what, during my masters, I want to make the most of my time, at Brunel. I want to, get some of the awards that I didn't. I want to do this, I want to do that. And then, yeah, it's a really fun thing to do. So I definitely recommend that if you are a student, especially if you're a Brunel student. I know that there's a lot of different, there's a whole wide variety of stuff you can get involved with at Brunel, but at most universities there always is as well. So I definitely recommend making the most of that, because not only does it sort of help you sort of you can build up friendships, you can build up your network, but also a lot of those sort of opportunities you can use toward your professional development. So I know, for example, Brunel has a accredited award that you get for sort of completing a number of different activities, whether this is on campus or off campus, but it's all to do around developing yourself professionally. And that's something that you can sort of include on your CV, you can include on your LinkedIn profile. It's something that gets added to your transcript when you leave university, to sort of showcase, like, all the wide varieties of work that you've done at your university. So yeah, I definitely recommend that if you are interested in knowing more, please do check out what your university does. Like Louise was saying, I know as a Brunel student, sometimes you do get a lot of newsletters or a lot of emails, but there's a lot going on. So always just make sure that you check your student emails, you check the what's on page on your intranet, because there's always something that you can get involved in, and that'll be of interest to you. But yeah, sort of like, I guess, with the university experience, we've come to the last question, which arguably could be the most important, because as I mentioned at the start, we're recording in June. Graduation for a lot of people, for them, their undergraduate especially, is coming around the corner. And there might be some students worrying, maybe a bit concerned about their future, what to do after they graduate. Do they go and do a master's? Do they go go straight into the working world and get involved with graduate opportunities? Do they just take a year out to just travel and explore the world? But yeah, it was just we'll start with Louise for this one. It was, what advice would you give to any student that's about to graduate? They've got their gowns, they've got sort of all the stuff ready, just waiting to collect their certificate. What advice would you give to them to prepare them to go into the working world?
Well, having had two children that have graduated, and both with very different experiences, so I would say, top and bottom, just take a breather. Just take just recheck with yourself. You've just had the best experience, hopefully. You've come out with a great achievement, and one that you'll take forward with you for the rest of your life, and it does stay with you. If you've got the opportunity, just recharge yourself and have a rethink. Some graduates may have already been applying, or undergraduates may have been applying for their graduate jobs, and they may have secured something, which is absolutely brilliant. You'll be on the road to, starting your career path. That's great. But for those people that haven't, I would just add at the moment that it's not a race, your career. It'll take whatever path and whatever time it takes. And what you've got to do is just enjoy the journey and let it take you. So I would say try and get a job, but don't be overly particular to start with about what that job is. I've known graduates from very reputable universities that have gone to work in warehouses and typing, or not typing floors, but in admin, just doing temping work, and then they've gone on to work as investment bankers in the city and lawyers in the city. So don't think that by just doing something to earn a bit of money and keep you busy during the day is going to dictate the fact that you can and can't go on and do the career that you want to do. don't have such high expectations that you've got to do it by this time and that time. Be realistic. Use the connections that you've got and that you've made at university, because an awful lot of careers are built on who you know and who introduced you somewhere, and did you know this job was going up, and do you know about this organization? And when you're being interviewed, it's sometimes a case of, oh yeah, I know them, I was at university with them, or I know of them by somebody else, and it goes a long way. And that's speaking from experience as well. It does count for an awful lot. The other thing I would say is there's a really good podcast called Squiggly Careers. And I left my previous career. I used to be a head teacher, and I came out of education and thought, oh, I don't want to go back and work. And then I thought, oh, I do. And I started listening to Squiggly Careers, and it really gave me the confidence to think I can go and do what I want. I don't have to do what other people think I ought to go back and do. I can go and choose something different. And there's lots of episodes and information on that. But I would highly recommend that to anybody, even if they've got a job and they're wanting to, they've got things that they want to consider. And also it just gives you a much better appreciation of the workplace as well. So that would be my recommendation.
Oh, thank you very much. And yeah, I definitely agree. I think there is always that concern of for students that you've spent 3, maybe 4 years, studying a certain subject. So you have to sort of like go straight into that job. You have to get in, you have to sort of like go on that career path. But like you said, I think sometimes just taking a break, taking a breather, acknowledging that, all this hard work has paid off. You've been able to graduate, and just sort of easing into sort of like figuring out what your next steps are really important. Because there was this, I've forgotten the person who said it, but this person said that, being, well, I mean, it applies to all ages, but he said, especially being in your 20s when you have no responsibility, you're not necessarily concerned with, with the family or things like that. That gives you the opportunity to learn more about what career you are interested in or what don't you like. Because I think while there are definitely students that are very passionate about what they want to get into and what they want to study, there's definitely a large majority that will come out of university and say either that they really enjoyed their degree but have no idea where they want to work or what type of work is actually important to them, or they'll sort of come out with the opposite and say that they did their degree, they're grateful for the time, but they actually feel like the degree was useless. They know that they don't want to work in that field. So being able to, like you were saying, Louise, to try new things, to think about what is actually next for me, to actually sort of plan that out and figure it out. And like you said, not putting like a time limit to it. So, saying that if you want to start a business, that you have to sort of within the next like 3 to 4 years be, bringing in like tens of thousands of pounds, being realistic and saying, what's the first thing that I actually do need to do to sort of build my business? Or even if you want to sort of, go into a certain career. So your goal might be to be a film director. You might say, okay, well, what do I actually need to do to get there? So rather than saying I'm going to be a film director in the next 10 years and, everyone's going to know my name, you can say, well, what do I need to do now to sort of get me on the path to be a film director? And then sort of making that the goal rather than, putting so much emphasis on, within this time limit, I have to be there, saying that, I want to get there, but I'll get there sort of like as time goes on and I'll work towards it instead. So yeah, thank you very much for that. But yeah, Emily, what would be your advice for anyone who's just about to graduate?
I think it would sort of be along the same lines, really, of being open to opportunities. But I would say really just think outside the box when it comes to looking for jobs in your specific field, if you do decide that you want to stay in the field of your degree. Because there are so many different pathways of getting into a particular field. So I was looking for assistant psychologist jobs and research assistant jobs when I graduated, which are very hard to find and very competitive, especially in the middle of a pandemic, which is when I graduated. And it was really difficult. And I'd never even heard of advocacy or mental health advocacy. And so I just stumbled into this job, not really knowing what it was. And it's given me so much experience in working with mental health and working with vulnerable people and working the university students, and it's really developed my career in different ways that I never even would have thought of. It's something that's really unexpected because I just went for something that wasn't necessarily that straight, narrow path of my graduating class expecting to get this kind of role. And it's really opened up doors for me, I think, and developed me as a person. So I think for graduates, it's about having an awareness that career paths come in all different shapes and sizes, and there's loads of different ways into getting into your end goal, and it doesn't have to be immediate. There is a ladder that we have to climb, and everyone's ladder is different. So it's okay if you're not doing the same thing that another graduate from your cohort is doing. We all have different directions that we go in, and eventually you'll find one that works for you, and there isn't any particular timeline that goes with that. And you just have to be a bit open-minded and open to new opportunities, I think, when it comes to careers and graduating.
I definitely agree. And I think that's something that a lot of students either aren't told, or when they're sort of graduating, that's not the case. They're sort of, thrown into the deep end of, and I think, both as someone who's been a graduate, there's always that annoyance of when people are just like, oh, you're coming to the end of your degree. What are you thinking of doing next? Where are you thinking of applying? And you sort of feel like, okay, I have to, give these answers. I have to do this now. But I think, like you said, just you can have the goal, but knowing that you can get there in any way, and just being open to those opportunities. Because while you might sort of find, that what you studied actually isn't where your true passion lies, or even, what you're currently studying, your passion you might be very passionate about it, but the way that, the careers for that certain course might go, you might not necessarily agree with. So, for example, with myself, my undergraduate was in environmental science, and I always said when I was doing my degree that I don't like lab work. I really just detest it. But I do really like talking about sustainability and sort of showing people like the benefits and sort of that personal interaction. And I said that that's one of the reasons why I liked my degree, is because you got to explore that in different ways. So while there were, someone was interested in lab work, they got to explore that. If someone preferred data, they got to explore that. If someone was interested more in like the outreach and the personal side around the environment, they got to explore that as well. And I know that that's not the case with every degree. That's not the case with every university. But it is also always great to know that, because it means, especially when you're sort of like looking for what to do next, you'll sort of be a bit more open. And sort of linking to that as well, I think, like what you're saying, Emily, where like what you're doing now, I guess in a year, even in a month's time, you might not necessarily want to be doing then. I think for example, in an episode we literally recorded, I think it was last week, I was saying that, when I was at secondary school, I thought I'd be doing bioengineering and nanotechnology as my job. If you asked me when I was like even younger than that, I was saying I wanted to be prime minister and going into politics. When you asked me when I was starting my undergraduate, I would have said that I would have loved to have been environmental scientist and working on environmental solutions in labs. And now, if you ask me, I'd say that I'd love to do outreach work, encouraging people to be very sustainable and doing consultation with organizations. And the honest fact is, probably in a year's time, that answer will definitely change again. But it's always being open to that, and knowing that you can, with your degree, there's like a variety of things. And I guess that's why it links nicely to the idea of making the most of university, because when you make the most of university, even with whatever you do as your degree, those transferable skills you'll get from, whether it's leading societies, or working as the treasurer, so figuring out the finances and managing the finances, even if you didn't necessarily study finance as your degree, or accounting or anything like that, by showing that you've got that experience anyways, that you've done sort of external work outside of your degree, is really good, because for any employers, it shows that you're quite passionate about something, especially if it's like nowhere near related to what you're actually studying. you're sort of going out and showing them that you're engaged and you're invested in these sort of subjects and in these topics. So I definitely would recommend, like what you were saying, what both Emily and Louise were saying, that, be okay with not necessarily knowing what you want to do at university. So if you're watching this or listening to this, and you don't know where you want to go next in life, that's perfectly fine. But just be open to any opportunities. You might see a job that's really interesting to you. You might see a master's course that's interesting to you. Someone might even just get in touch with you and just say they really like the work that you're doing and they'd love to offer you this amazing opportunity to work in their organization. But yeah, just be open. Life has a funny way of throwing opportunities your way. So yeah, always just be open to where life could lead you. But yeah, we've now come to the end of this episode, because unfortunately all things must come to an end, and this is the end of the episode. But I'd like to say a huge thank you to both Emily and Louise for coming onto the podcast today. It's been a great pleasure to talk to you about, I think, 3 very key subject areas for students right now, especially in this sort of period up to graduation. And it's been really great to sort of hear some key tips, to learn, some personal stories, and I'm sure our audience will definitely be able to, take this advice on and implement it in their own lives. And yeah, thank you to you, our wonderful audience, for coming back to another episode. Before we end it, as we mentioned before, Advent Advocacy were on an episode of Pick Up the Mic. So they were on an episode of the Student Guide, and we will be including the link to that in one of the corners on YouTube, but also in the link below. So if you haven't watched it, please watch that, because you can learn a bit more about their service there. But it was just to say, Emily, if there's anyone watching who's interested in learning a bit more about Advent Advocacy, maybe they're a Brunel student, they want to get involved, what is the best way for them to do that?
I would say either through our Instagram page. You can DM us, you can send us just a comment on a photo if you want to know more, or you can email us at students with an S at adventadvocacy.co.uk. It's also on our Instagram, on our website, and we have a LinkedIn. All of the information is available, but you can contact us directly through DM and email. Those are probably the 2 best ways to get in touch.
Oh, perfect. Well, thank you. And yeah, thank you again to you, our wonderful audience, for coming back. If you like this episode, like, comment, subscribe is always appreciated. If you want to know when the next episode of whether it is So No One Told You or any of our other podcasts is coming out, then please do make sure that you click the notification bell at the bottom of the video so you don't miss it. And finally, if you're interested in receiving some perks as well as supporting the podcast and the work that we do, we'd really appreciate it. So please do check out our Patreon page. The link is in the description. But yeah, that's you've learned some new things that you weren't told before. Wish you all the best. Have a great day. Hopefully it's warm when you're watching this, so you've still got the summer vibes to enjoy. And we'll see you all next time when we learn something new that no one told us. So that's a bye from us here, and have a great day.